Okay, so Hearthstone just announced the newest expansion, and not only that, like they announced so many things. There was a lot of stuff crammed into their announcement, which isn't unusual, but there's a lot of stuff. Death Knights, specifically Death Knights, are coming. But I really want to do a bit of a deeper dive into Death Knights and the deck building there. So in this video, let's talk about the expansion. Let's talk about some of the stuff that was just announced because there's a lot. So, yes, the new expansion was just announced. It is March of the Lich King, and it is going to be coming out on December 6th. Now, March of the Lich King, again, is bringing Death Knights as a new playable class. So there will be 11 classes in Hearthstone with this launch. Now, of course, with that, there's going to be tons of new cards. They have to make, specific Death Knight cards. So there's going to be a ton of new cards coming, and the Death Knights are going to also be using runes in addition to mana with their deck building and such. And again, I will go into that in another video, so check that out, and we can talk all about that. But kind of interesting, they are releasing a ton of new cards for Death Knights, 50% more than they did with Demon Hunters. The way they're doing it is a little different. So it's kind of interesting, and I guess it makes sense why there has to be some more cards. But they are also then introducing, kind of because of the Death Knights, the way this all works, and just kind of the lore, a new minion type. And it is undead. So a lot of skeleton type things will be undead. Zombie type units and minions will be undead. But this is, I think, the coolest thing. Dual type minions. I am actually really excited about dual type minions. I think this is something that would have been awesome to have even like several years ago. Including cards like that in certain decks will definitely have a huge impact. So I'm really excited for dual type minions. They didn't jump out of the gate with the new keyword. Instead, they led in with all of the Death Knight stuff, and they reintroduced, I guess, the keyword Reborn, which they have had on some minions and has been a mechanic in like Battlegrounds, but they are bringing it back to standard. So Reborn is coming back. The first time that a minion dies that has that Reborn, it is revived with 1 health remaining. So it really kind of fits in with the, skeleton zombie type of minions. But the new keyword that they did introduce is Mana Thirst. Now, Mana Thirst seems really interesting. So the cards read Mana Thirst, and then in parentheses have a number, and then following that is the effect that will happen. Like, it's an added effect. It's a bonus once you get to a certain mana point. But you don't spend that mana. So one example of that here is Arcane Bolt. It's a mage arcane spell. It's only 1 mana to play it, and you can deal 2 damage. But if you have Mana Thirst of 8, so if you have 8 mana or more, you'll get to deal 3 damage instead. Talking about spells, this is something players have been talking about for a long time, and that is neutral spells. 8.5 years in Hearthstone's history, spells have only been available to classes. There are no neutral spells that every class has access to, but now that has changed. And this time around, as they have been doing for quite a while, everyone can log in and get a card for free. And not only is it just a neutral spell, it is a legendary spell. Legendary spell that everyone has access to. You log into the game and you get it for free. The Sunwell, it's a 9 mana holy spell. Now, my instinct when I first saw that was, oh, okay, you kind of see the border, it's got the legendary and it's holy, that's a paladin spell. And then they said, no, this is a neutral spell. So everyone can log in and get this Sunwell card absolutely for free. This is the start. This is how it starts. And of course, we don't know very much of the set at all since it was just announced. So over the next month, I am sure that I feel like we're going to see more. We're going to see more neutral spells. And then, of course, down the road with other expansions, I'm sure they'll add those in as well. So having neutral spells is very, very interesting. I'm super curious to see how they do this, especially with things like the legendaries, because I feel like some of the neutral cards that we've seen create a kind of same feeling, like a sameness with deck building with some of the legendary, specifically legendary neutral minions. And so I hope that the spells don't end up feeling that same way as well. You know, if everybody just kind of jams the same neutral spells and neutral minions into their decks and then plugs a couple class cards here and there, it's going to create a sameness type of feel. So I really hope that that's not the path that is going to happen with some of these cards. But it's definitely something kind of exciting because it is brand new to have neutral spells. Now, talking about cosmetics, of course, they introduced some new cosmetic type of stuff. And the first thing that they introduced is signature cards. Signature cards and signature golden packs. So these are kind of full art style looks to the cards. There's nothing different about them other than the way they look. Like, they're still going to cost the same. They still have the same effect. It's essentially the same as like regular golden or diamond version of cards. They play the same, they just look different. It's gonna be interesting. There's 18 signature cards coming with March of the Lich King. 15 of those are legendaries, and they did say that you can't craft them, which I think my initial instinct is that that's not great. I understand the kind of collectability of them. But if you have 15 of 18 cards as legendaries and you have to open them, 2 of them you can get with the Mega Bundle. Of course, they'll have the pre-purchase stuff. Now, this is the first time as well. They are doing something a little bit different. For 1 full week after the expansion, you can still get the pre-purchase bundles, which usually the pre-purchase ends, you know, basically like when the expansion comes out, right? So you have to get the bundles before the expansion launches, and then once it launches, those are gone. You can't have access to those anymore to get them. But they are actually trying out a 1 week kind of cushion. So up to a week after the expansion launches, you can still get the pre-purchase stuff, which I actually think that's kind of cool. Gives people a chance to watch some streams and videos once the expansion launches, or they can kind of jump in and see, you know, other people playing stuff, and then they can decide, hey, this is cool. I want more of these cards. Now, the other kind of big stuff that they talked about as well is the events. Now, they introduced the kind of Hallows End patch and already a little bit, you know, preview, but in the announcement video, they actually said basically that the reason that they're doing this together is they're kind of combining the Hallows End stuff with Lich King and Death Knight stuff, and they're introducing an entirely new events tab in the journal. So when they do events, it's going to be totally separate. You know, you can actually see it kind of separated from everything else, which will, of course, allow them to do more like cosmetic-based things there, all of that. But I think it's also great for people who might not care as much about the event things, and it'll be easier for players to actually find the things for events instead of just logging in and it being kind of mixed in with their normal dailies and weeklies. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. I think that's really cool. And I can't wait to see what is going to be happening with this Hallows End event and this Death Knights, and yeah, Death Knight stuff are coming back to standard as well with this. So there's a lot going on, but it's very, very exciting. I can't wait to see more of these, and I'll definitely be talking about some of these cards, but so far, are there any of these cards that are you most excited for? How do you feel about Death Knights? I don't know. There's so many things they announced. Let me know in the comments below and check out my Death Knight video as well. Thank you so much for checking this out. And I guess we'll see you in game with Death Knights.